ballots in single-member districts. So, first of all, you'll be allowed to run. Second of all, you can vote with your heart. And most importantly, you end up with the proper outcome, which is what the majority wants. But there's another good thing that happens. So, rip it apart again. So they're all in the race now. So when you're running, actually, let me explain how the runoff. How many people don't know what a ranked ballot is, how it works, and what a runoff is, and the 50% threshold? Okay, great. That's all we need. There's others too that are being shy. Thank you. So if you were all being shy, I wouldn't know. So the system is very simple, and every party in Canada uses this to elect their own leaders. And the idea is that if a majority of the people don't want you, you shouldn't win. Which kind of sounds crazy for us to even have to say that. But we do, because our current system doesn't do that. So you need to reach a post, which is 50%, and the first to get past the post wins. Okay? 50% threshold. This is for single-member districts. I can explain after an even better way of doing it. With a single-member district, let's just use mayor, for example, which is what we're doing. So if you want to be mayor of a city, at least 50% should want you. So what do we do here? 35, 25, 40. So no one's hit the magical threshold of 50. What would a party do? You've watched party leadership races on TV? What happens? Say it louder.
Drop the lowest.
Drop the lowest. So who's the lowest here? Matthew, sorry buddy. Wait, don't take the votes with you. You leave. So now, essentially there's a few ways to do it. The way the political parties used to do it is say, okay everyone, first round is in. 25, 35, 40. Candidate green is out. Thanks for running. And then your votes, essentially in the second round, what we say is, okay everyone, we're going to vote again. Sorry dude, you're amazing, but you weren't amazing enough. It's democracy. People get hurt, their cards get crushed. So now we say, okay everyone, come back. Only 2 candidates left now. We're going to vote again. And where are these going to go? You might get some of them. I mean, it's possible, right? Because maybe some of those people hate facial hair more than they hate earrings. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll go with the earrings because of the beard. But you'll get most of them. Oh, you win 9% now. You just lost. Okay, so it goes back to 60. The idea is, in a runoff, it's as simple as that. If no one wins the majority, you drop the candidate with the least, and you can do this over and over and over again until someone reaches 50%. And let's make this even a little more fun. So the filter was right, we just had it upside down. You're going to win either way. Let's get rid of these, actually, just in time. Let's have another one. So I'm going to actually hold this one. This will be fun. So, but both of you stay here. So now, sorry about the audio. I got to walk away sometimes.
Yeah, no problem. I
people watch this online. Sorry, everyone. Just watch. I'll enunciate so you can read my lips.
I have a hot mic.
Move away from the microphone.
I have a hot mic, so they get it. It's just not very clear because the room has a bed vernacular. But don't worry. Don't let it interfere with the great performance.
I won't. Nothing will get in my way. And nothing's going to get in the way of me winning the next election. So I'm the mayor now. I'm Mayor Meslin, and I'm doing a terrible job. Absolutely terrible job. No one likes me anymore. I've broken laws. I drive in the HOV lane. And people are just, they feel that's not right, that's not fair. I'm setting a bad example. So my popularity has dropped to 20%. This is pretty bad. It's pretty low. So I'm in trouble. Which sucks, because I want to keep the job and my pension. But that's okay, because this is first past the post. So this is what happens. Julie's going to run against me. Just hold that up. This is Creative 80, right? Did I get that right? Yeah. It's a squiggle. It's a weird squiggle. That's what happens when you ask artists to make your quilts. So this is what will happen if one person runs against me. And again, first past the post works amazingly in a 2-person race. So I need 3 more volunteers. If you could just, 3 of you could just walk up here for a second. So if one person runs against me, I'm in trouble. And here's where first past the post is so annoying. The more engaged the population is, the less chance they have of having an impact collectively. So if 80% want to get rid of me, but they're all so lazy that they'll only do ones, I lose. But if an environmental group runs someone, and a queer group, and a community gardening group, and a knitting group, all against me. Can you write that up now? I might need one more. Quick, come up. So now you've got 80% who want change, but some of them want you, someone, you, someone, you. You're not sure. Hold up your numbers with pride. 19%. Oh, sorry. We had enough. That's okay. How embarrassing. 12, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20. This adds up to 100, my friends. And I am the winner. This happens in Toronto. We have people winning as low as 17%. I think your lowest was around 30 or something. But it can get as low as this. And of course, if this can be infinitely expanded. You can win an election with 2% of the vote. But this is crazy. So what would happen here is, who's got the lowest? You have the lowest. Julie's the lowest. So we would have another round, and this 12 would go somewhere else. What a ranked ballot does is, instead of saying, okay, Julie's out, everyone vote again, we only have 5 candidates left. Where do you want to go, Julie supporters? On a ranked ballot, you've already listed your first, second, and third choice. So whoever wanted you to be mayor would have put Julie first, and maybe put you second. Or someone would have put you second. It's called an instant runoff. The votes get retabulated right away. And what the advantages are is that all of you are allowed to run. None of you are being accused of hurting Julie's chance of beating me. In fact, she ended up being the first one out, right? And I don't know who's going to win in the end. What happens here is, you don't necessarily win because you have the highest second place number with 19. The person who wins, the person who attracts the most second and third choices. Essentially, you become a consensus candidate. But the best part is, when you're campaigning against each other, under the current system, there's an incentive to go negative. My vote can only go up if your vote goes down. I can't gain a single vote unless I steal it from you. So I'm going to dig up dirt or try and think of ways to somehow damage your credibility, right? You never went to university. Your watch is 10 minutes off, whatever. You drove an HOV lane. I don't know, whatever it is. You're too young. You're not ready, right? I mean, most of the ads we're seeing now for the federal election aren't about why Mulcair, Trudeau, or Harper are good. It's why someone else is bad. And that works under first past the post. But think about it. In a runoff, whoever, you know who's going to win? The person who hasn't alienated their opponent's supporters. So you still want to differentiate yourself as a candidate. You don't want to be too nice because you have to explain why you're the best. But instead of saying, these guys are morons, you got to vote for me because they're garbage and they're not ready. You'll say things like, well, that's a very good policy you have on incineration, but mine's a little different, and here's why. And here's why my position will be better for this city, for the jobs and the economy, and our children and our children's children. But good job for having a constructive idea. It becomes respectful, and it becomes more intelligent, and it becomes about the ideas instead of the negativity. So round of applause for all of our... Those would have, of course, added back up to 80. I'll spare you the putting 5 pieces back together with Velcro. So that's essentially how it works in a single member district. So the problem with that is that it's still a majoritarian system. The better system, which Fairvote advocates for provincially and federally, although you don't have to do it this way, there's different ways to get proportional outcomes. But let's just take that first example with the earrings and no earrings. So 60% wanted, what was it again? No earrings? Right. So that's nice. The problem is if every ward in Hamilton was voting that way, then you'd end up with a council with the ranked ballot with 100% no earrings. You'd have no earrings on council. Even though 40% of the city still wanted it, the voice wouldn't be represented here. So at least you've brought it to a majority system where you don't get a fake majority against the will of what people want, but it's not a proportional system. There's different ways to do proportional systems federally and provincially. The two models are MMP and STV, but MMP requires parties, so I won't even go there now, but you'll hear all about it perhaps because it's the model that the NDP has chosen federally, and the model that our Citizens Assembly chose in Ontario. The system that works federally, and you could also do it municipally to different degrees, is called STV, a single transferable vote. And I won't go into it in details. Google it, look up a video by CGP Grey. He's this really fun guy who makes cute animations explaining how all these different voting systems work. But essentially, you have multi-member districts. Instead of having one counselor, you could have 2, 3, 4, or 5. And the higher the number goes, the more proportionate the outcome is. So to go back to that example of 60-40, let's say you took Vancouver's fully at large, actually. Let's say you took Hamilton's city council. You got 15 councillors now. You go to 5 wards, 3 seats each. Out of those 3, using the ranked ballot and STV, no earrings will win 2, and earrings will win 1. So the majority gets their way, but that earring voice is still represented. You've created a possibility for an element of proportionality by going to a multi-member district. And one way you could do that in Hamilton is to either create 5 wards of 3 each, or 3 wards of 5 each, or there's different hybrid models, and I know that at least one person in Fairvote is looking at this, Marvin. It's a great idea, and it's already being done in Ontario, where you keep your wards, but have a few at-large seats on top of that. So you could go down to 10 wards, make them a little bigger, and then have 5 people who are at-large, which gives you 2 benefits. One is that they represent the city citywide, instead of just one neighborhood. But number 2, you can create an element of proportionality within those 5, as low as 20%, right? I want to tell you a quick story of just how real this is. So I ran a really fun project in 2006 called City Idol in Toronto. And it was based on this idea that politics could look and feel differently, and that there's other people who would step up to the plate if the system felt more inviting and inclusive, and that it's kind of an insider game right now, especially in Toronto. And so I had this crazy idea. Like American Idol, I would invite people onto a stage to compete in front of a live audience. But instead of competing with their voices and their songs to show that they're the best rock star, they would come to the stage with their ideas of how to make the city better in front of a live audience, that they show that they have what it takes to be a city councillor. And then the audience would vote for their favorites. And then we had a semi-final and a final. We did a bunch of exercises on stage. They had to do a media scrum to show that they're good on their toes, in addition to writing a good speech. And in American Idol, the winner gets a record deal. In City Idol, the winner gets an election campaign. You can have no experience. I don't care if you're right-wing, left-wing, what age you are. If you can convince the crowd that you've got what it takes to make the city better, we will run a campaign for you. We'll fundraise for you. We'll give you lawn signs. We'll give you a website, media training, everything. And we had 4 winners from different parts of the city, Etobicoke, North York, Scarborough, and downtown. And it was a very idealistic project, and a lot of people told me I was crazy and wasting my time. But I knew that I felt it would create something different. And one thing I wanted to show was that city council doesn't have to be as white and male dominated as it is. Toronto, we pride ourselves on being one of the most diverse cities in the world. But then you go into council and it's like, well, where is that diversity? Why does it not exist on our legislative body that represents us? So I wanted to recruit candidates from underrepresented communities and give them a voice and a chance to run. And it was amazing. The candidates were very diverse, really smart, really fun. 600 people showed up to our opening night. It was actually the largest event of the entire election, because that was Miller's second run, so there wasn't a big contested mayor race. It was kind of a sleepy election, and we were kind of the biggest thing happening in a way. The media was all over it too. And what happened was 4 people won. Amarjeet Chabra, Sikh female labor activist, she won our final in Scarborough. Bahar Amin Vaziri, Iranian female, won our North York final. Desmond Cole, who's been in the media a lot recently for his amazing work on carding, he was our winner in 2006 for the downtown. And Arthur Roshak was our winner in Etobicoke. And I was like, this is great. Like, that's Toronto, who's very diverse. 1 white guy out of 4, not bad. And they ran campaigns, we set up websites for them, we did fundraising, and then what happened is we organized an event at City Hall where they gave their $100 to sign up to run. And we invited the media, and it was just like so empowering for them and for me to see that this idea I had was coming to fruition. And then Amarjeet gets a phone call from her own allies, from the equivalent of the role you played a minute ago. Amarjeet, we love you, you're great, but you can't run in Ward 44. This is where she chose to run. I told them to run wherever you want. This was a New Democrat from City Hall. She's a labor activist. New Democrat staffer at City Hall said, Amrit, you can't run in 44. You're going to split the vote. There's a liberal incumbent who isn't as left-wing as we'd like, but she's mostly voting with Miller, so we're happy with her, and she's being challenged by a conservative, and you're going to ruin it. And I was devastated. She was devastated. She did drop out of that race. She ran in a different ward where she had no roots. And right off, this light just went off in my head, 2006. And I was like, wait a minute, like I've been watching leadership races for years, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. So I started researching it and Googling it and finding out that American cities don't do it the way we do it. They've all got some form of mechanism to ensure that that doesn't happen, either through primaries or through a second round runoff 2 weeks later where you go to your top two, or a ranked ballot. So Minneapolis is using a ranked ballot. San Francisco is using a ranked ballot. And I went to those cities. I went to San Francisco. I went to Minneapolis. I met with the activists. I met with voters. I went to Minneapolis for an entire election and watched the whole thing unfold, interviewed voters, asked them if they found the ballot confusing, if they found it had an impact on campaigns treating each other in a more positive manner. Minneapolis was amazing. This was 2 years ago I went. They elected a female mayor, 50% female councillor, their first Somali councillor ever, their first Latina councillor ever, and their first Hmong councillor ever, their second time using ranked ballots. So absolutely transformative. And so many people told me that they felt the candidates were treating each other in a more fair way. Desmond Cole was also asked to drop out of his race. And he didn't. He stayed in. But he had so many people at the door say, Des, I think you're great. And I actually think you're winning the debates, because if any of you heard him speak, like he's just incredibly eloquent and inspiring in a frightening way. And but it wasn't his race. There was a tight race between Helen Kennedy and Adam Vaughan. Adam Vaughan, the son of a former councillor, and Helen Kennedy, the executive assistant of a former councillor, Olivia Chow. Both total insiders in their own ways. Great people. They're both fantastic people, but coming from the inside of the system. And people told Desmond he didn't have a chance, they weren't going to waste their vote. So one of the good things about a ranked ballot is he could have said, well, put me first. And then, if enough people do that, I might win. If I drop off, your second vote will kick in, and you can still choose Adam or Helen. So he would have actually had a shot at least, not just winning, but at least knowing how much support he had. People would have been more comfortable giving him money or putting up a lawn sign. So strategic voting doesn't just play out in votes. If you're a Green Party supporter, but you're worried about, let's say, Harper winning, you don't just vote strategically. You're also not going to put up a green sign or give the Greens money, because you're just helping to split the anti-Harper. And again, this isn't a left-wing thing. We're actually very proud of the Rabbit campaign in Toronto being supported by folks on the right, the left, and everything in between. And I'm completely nonpartisan. In fact, I spent the last year working for a Conservative MP, Michael Chong, on a bill called the Reform Act, which we just won 2 weeks ago, even though some people in the Senate were trying to kill it. Amazing. Thanks. Michael Chong is amazing. He's an amazing guy. There's a few folks in politics, Matthew, Michael, Desmond one day, who you're like, they're in it for the right reasons, and they're not trying to beat the other team. There's way too much partisanship in politics where it's like, I'm on the good team, that's the bad team, we have to beat the bad team. And it's just about bringing good ideas forward, and I'll work with anyone from any party to bring good ideas forward, and that's what we've been doing in Toronto. So what happened is, the good news is, and why I'm here and how this relates back to you, and what the province is doing now is, I organized this campaign, Rabbit, and I have a sip of water. Water break, drink up. I'm a volunteer. All my friends are volunteers. The whole campaign is completely volunteer. And we started making a website and flyers and quilts and talking to journalists and talking to community leaders and academics and recruiting more volunteers and having events just like this. And slowly, from 2006 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, we finally reached a point where we thought we might be able to win a vote at council. And we got one city councillor to move a motion at committee, Councillor Paul Ainsley, who was a member of Rob Ford's executive, again, working with whoever's in power, because movement organizing isn't just about trying to make sure that your guy wins the next election. It's about building up so much support for your movement that it actually doesn't matter who's in power, because politicians will bow to public pressure, even if they don't agree with it. So we built up this campaign, we moved a motion, staff wrote a report, and what the report said is, well, you're not allowed to use ranked ballots. you want to use ranked ballots in Ontario, you actually need to change the Municipal Elections Act. So council needs to move a motion asking the province to change the Municipal Elections Act. So a motion went forward for that. We won that vote 26-15. And just to give you a context of how historic this is and the role you can play here, Canada is one of the only countries, if not the only country, I don't know of another country that is currently using first past the post for every election at all three levels of government. Because America doesn't, England doesn't, France doesn't, Australia doesn't, and all other European countries are using some form of PR. So what we're talking about here is actually introducing the first non-first past the post elections anywhere in Canada in our lifetime. And it's happening right now. Because the province said, okay, council's moved this motion. Actually, the government officially said nothing. 2 MPPs, Mitzi Hunter, who's awesome, Liberal MPP, Scarborough-Guildwood, and Jonah Shine, who was my MPP at the time, NDP, Davenport, they brought forward private members' bills. And Mitzi's bill made it through second reading, went to committee. This was a bill to give the city of Toronto, only Toronto, permission to use ranked ballots. And at the time, I felt it was sad that the government fell, an election was called, and we lost our bill. But it turns out, and this is why I'm here tonight, that it was for the best. Because after the government fell and the election was called, we started mobilizing our thousands of supporters to ask the Liberals, Conservatives, and New Democrats, if you're elected, what are you going to do for ranked ballots? And the NDP said, we will let Toronto do it if we're elected. And the Liberals said, if we're elected, we will let any city in Ontario use ranked ballots. There's 444 municipalities. And she won. As far as I know, she won a majority, a fake majority, but a majority nonetheless. And then she sent out a series of mandate letters, Kathleen Wynne, and her mandate letter to her Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Ted McMeekin, said, one of the things I want you to do is to let every city in Ontario use ranked ballots in time for the 2018 election. The province is currently holding consultations on that. They're committed to doing it. It will be happening. Legislation is coming in the fall. It'll reach final reading by the spring, I think. And at that point, it's 444 green lights across Ontario. Every city from Wawa to Windsor to Whitby and Hamilton, you can use it. And it'll be up to councillors like Matthew to be the champions on the inside, but it won't happen without champions on the outside. So what I've been doing is I started this group called 123 Ontario. Our website is 123ontario.ca. And I'm setting up a network of ranked ballot campaigns across Ontario, both for single-member districts, where the 50% threshold kicks in, and for multi-member districts, where it's a proportional outcome. And I'm leaving that up to each local city to decide what they think is practical and achievable. The proportional system is a better system because the proportional outcome is the holy grail of for any election advocate. In Toronto, it's not. I don't think it's practical. And that's for you to figure out here what's practical here in Hamilton. But we have a 123 London campaign. We have a 123 Guelph campaign. We have 123 Windsor. We have Ottawa 123. They didn't get 123 Ottawa because someone already had the URL. Let's see what we have. Guelph, London, Windsor, Whitby, Sudbury. And I feel like Hamilton's just this, it's nagging at me. We should have a Hamilton one. So I'm actually here to recruit. It's really fun. I won't say it's easier than you think, because it's actually a ton of work, but it's simpler than you think. It might be daunting to think, oh, I can't run a nonprofit campaign about changing the voting system in Ontario's 6th largest city, but you can, because I'm doing it, and like, who the hell am I? Like, no one hired me to do this. I never even went to university. Like, I'm not the executive director of anything. I just really believe in positive, constructive social change. And I believe that if you find other people who share that view and bring them together into a room just like this, and then come up with a name for your group, 123 Hamilton sounds catchy. And then you come up with a logo and a brand, and you hold a meeting, and you ask people, like, who knows how to do fundraising, who knows how to do writing, who's good at social media, who knows how to do database management, who knows how to do, what other skills do you need? Quilt making, right? Event organizing. You get those people in a room and you just do it. And it's tough work. It's the most rewarding thing you could ever do in your life, to have legislation come in and be like, I did that. That happened because of me and my friends. I'm telling you, it's amazing. So I want to start with, I want to echo what Matthew said, to thank you for being here, because you could have just been at home watching TV or in a park enjoying this beautiful weather. You came here. That's amazing. But it's not enough. We need leaders to make this happen in Hamilton. So some of you don't have the time to be leaders. That's okay too. But you should at least leave here today by giving, I guess for now it's Matthew. At some point it'll be campaign coordinator Julie or Kelsey or I don't know all your names, Narinder. Someone's going to step up. Maybe it'll be 3 people, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 10. It might just be 1. There's a woman named Mita Williams who's running 123 Windsor all on her own. It's just Mita. And she's doing great. She's in the news and the media will flock to you. It's once you've created the brand and the space, they'll come to you and say, okay, well, what is this about? And you better have your answers ready because they'll have tough questions for you, which is, again, hard, but totally fun. And we have a province-wide network that will help you with all that. We'll give you resources, we'll train you. So let me just take questions about this, about the provincial process, about ranked ballots, about the STV model, or questions about how to organize. If any of you want to take this on, what are your questions about how to make things happen? Because I have a lot of answers. And there's no right way to do it either. I'll just tell you what's worked for me. And please, if you could start by just saying your name, so I know your name, that'd be great. Oh, yeah, Matthew has something to say.
Yes, just quickly for way of process, because it is tagged into the audio.
Oh, yeah.
So if we have people asking their questions from the audience, it won't be picked up. And
I'll
so
repeat it.
We have a couple of different options. You can come down to this front row and chime in there, or you can come down and join Wilhelmina and I here at the mayor's podium and ask your question here. It's very important for me and for all of us, I think, for this movement, this conversation, that it is recorded and live streamed so that we can share it. And so it's very important that when people ask their questions, it goes on the record and the response.
But if you're feeling really lazy, we can repeat it too.
Okay, that's true. That is
right?
also true. Yes.
It's your democratic choice to be lazy. Great. Up to you, absolutely. You can be the mayor. Well, I assume that's the mayor's seat. Unless he's into, there's a big movement now for stand-up desks. Is this the mayor's stand-up desk? Cool.
Okay, so Rahim Aman, I just had a quick question. So you have to be nonpartisan to be affiliated with this? Because I'm affiliated with the Green Party of Canada.
No, absolutely not. The group has to be nonpartisan. So lots of people in our group are part of every party. It just means that as a movement, you can't, if you're as a spokesperson, you can't reveal your partisanship. So if you're doing interviews, for example, but also it just means when you're explaining the benefits of it, you don't say, well, we can use this to get out the right-wingers or the left-wingers or whatever. Some people get involved with electoral reform specifically to get rid of a certain movement or a certain political stripe. I think it's a big problem. The electoral movement in Canada right now is heavily left-leaning. Huge problem because there's nothing left-wing about it. But because Harper right now is benefiting from it, it tends to be anti-Harper people, which is a problem. So what you ideally want to do now as a Green is find a Liberal, a New Democratic, Conservative. But this is municipal politics too, so everyone's nonpartisan municipally. But the main thing is that you don't want anyone to read your website or hear your interview and think, oh, it's a Green thing or a Liberal thing or a left-wing thing or an anarchist thing or whatever. You want to have a message that appeals to the broadest audience possible. But of course, you'd be more than welcome to be a leader, and I hope you do. And I love the Greens, and I'm fighting really hard to get Elizabeth May included in the debates. You know, under a proportional system, the Greens would already have 15 to 30 seats. Think about that. I mean, 500,000 people voted for the Greens, and they were like, oh, we won one. Bye, guys. Awesome to see you. That's crazy. And then for any party to say, well, we don't know if they should be in the debate because they only have one seat. It's like, well, don't use first past the post to harm them even more. It's crazy. If they're going to set a threshold for debates, it should be based on popular vote, not based on seat count at all. Do you want to add in something? Or you're just waving?
No, so I was waiting for my
Oh, yeah. So yeah, answer is yes. And please do it. Okay. Awesome. And good luck this year. To all parties. No. No. That's very counterintuitive. Press the red button to start it. Green to stop.
the opposite of what it should be, right? So my name's Annette Van Olden Barneveld. I'm wondering, what is the first contact point for starting this and getting the training that you have available? Would that be through you directly or 123 Ontario?
It's the same thing. I am 123 Ontario.
Nice.
just as you will be 123 Hamilton. So the neat thing about nonprofit groups is this is off the record that you can create this illusion like you're part of some large organization when you're not. And it's called fake it till you make it, and it's what all professional adults actually do in their jobs anyway, so it's totally ethical. When I launched Rabbit, there was no Rabbit, and just like Mita in Whitby, she's in Windsor, a guy named Nick is doing it in Whitby, he just recruited a second person, Linda. It's okay for it just to be you, and then eventually 5, 6, I don't know, you're on board, some others. Yeah, you make it. You have a website that makes it look like you have an office building with staff and then like HR people. But it's so yeah. I am one. You're looking at 123 Ontario. This is my office building and the HR department. The starting point is right now, and we'll go out for pizza after. First meeting of 123 Hamilton. I heard it's today at 8:30, 9 at where's the meeting? Who scheduled this meeting? 123 Hamilton. I don't know. I'll schedule right now. It's at what time is it now? Well, anyways, it's coming up. The first meeting of 123 Hamilton will congregate by that weird palm tree thing or something in the hallway as soon as this is done, and we're going to go get pizza and plan the local revolution. How's that for an answer?
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Who else wants to hit a red light to start something?
So, firstly, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise.
You hold the distinction of being...
Wait. Oh, yeah. Hey, you got to see this guy.
You hold the distinction of being blamed by our city staff for this whole entire reform process. And I'm not kidding you. You were actually named as a Toronto activist.
What was that line that the Greek finance minister said a few days ago? He's like, I'm so proud that everyone hates me.
But what I'm interested in is that we have submissions on electoral reform.
Okay.
And I'm actually writing a column right now because yesterday we had an election audit compliance committee here. And it's the body that's supposed to oversee our elections. And I found really interesting, and instead of pointing at this committee, because I don't think the committee is the problem, I think it's the structure, the committee chair said he wasn't familiar with the Municipal Elections Act. And
okay.
I remember sitting there going, but that's like your entire function, that's what you exist for. So beyond ranked balloting, what are some of the issues that you're going to be addressing in your letter to the province on reform of the Act?
Sure. I'll be honest, I've kind of got blinders on. I'm really focused on the ranked ballots because I think it's the biggest change. It's the lowest hanging fruit right now. And in Toronto, we've banned corporate and union donations, like our campaign finance reform. I don't think you've done that here. Do you have spending limits?
We have the provincially set spending
So like in
limits.
Vancouver, they don't have spending limits or campaign limits. Like they have nothing, and they're like total Wild West. So everyone's got their own, you got to figure out what's the next win for you. And maybe it's not ranked ballots. Maybe first you want to deal with campaign finance stuff. I can't judge or inform that. In Toronto, the next big win is ranked ballots. The other ones that I think are interesting and definitely worth looking at, I think the issue around letting permanent residents, non-citizen permanent residents, vote municipally is an amazing idea. And there's arguments against it that it erodes or dilutes citizenship, and I actually think it would have the opposite effect. It would bring people in and make them feel like they have a voice and have a sense of ownership over the system, and they're more likely to become citizens and participate provincially and federally. I fully support lowering the voting age to 16, but that's not about to happen at any level of government, but I think that's really winnable and really important. And it's not just because they're smart enough, it's because 18 is the worst age. If we're not going to do 16, we should actually do 25. People don't live at home when they're 18. A lot of them are off at campus, which means they're not at their voting booth, but also they might be, I don't know, they could be drinking, for example. They could be doing lots of things. That's not like the age to be like, hey, I've got your attention, let's talk about democracy. It's like the last age I would ever choose. 16, you're in high school studying civics. Wouldn't that be amazing if the civics teacher, instead of saying, well, you're not old enough to vote yet, As a society, we don't really trust that you're intelligent enough yet to participate, but here's how civics works. Imagine if the intro was, hey, you're 16 now. It's time to vote. Do you want to learn about it? Right? So 16 would be huge. I don't know. There's lots of things. I think the way we run our debates is actually really problematic, including municipal. I don't know what you do here if you have 12 people running for mayor. Like, who decides who goes to the debate, or do you invite them all? In Toronto, there's like, it's the same as the federal scene, where they can just decide if Elizabeth is in or not. Municipally, they can just decide which candidates are in or not. I think that's a problem. Not that you should include everyone every time, but there needs to be a clear, transparent process for deciding. What else? There's a lot of talk about bringing political parties to the municipal system. I'm not a fan of that, although I think there are genuine benefits. I can see the pros and cons. I think the way our councils vote in a nonpartisan way is amazing. So we have 45 members of our council, 44 plus the mayor. And I was there yesterday watching. And what's amazing is that every vote is unpredictable, and it could be 45-0, 44-1, which is Rob Ford, 43-2, which is Rob Ford and Giorgio Mammoliti, all the way to 23-22, and anything you can imagine. And each time you're like, oh wow, like I can't believe those two voted together. And you watch Queen's Park, and it's just so sad. And this is why I did the Reform Act in Ottawa. Like, why do we hire these people and give them pensions and offices when they get up and they vote how they're told and they read speeches that someone else wrote for them? So I would hate to see our city councils voting as blocks, with the right and the left just trying to like outsmart each other. And Vancouver has this. People say that it's not super partisan there, and there is a bit of independence for councillors. And the benefits are, though, that in between elections, we don't really have much of a role. Like, Matthew's in, we love Matthew, great, go do it. What do we do? With political parties, there'd still be policy conventions and candidate nominations and electoral riding associations for each ward. So there are benefits, but there's no appetite for that in Toronto. I don't know if there is here. What else? I think we should get rid of the mayor, not John Tory. And this is a total radical idea, but I actually think it's a mistake that we still cling on to the idea of requiring a single person executive at the top. I think it's just like a biblical idea. It's like the last thing we've held on to of the idea of monarchy. We're going to elect them, but we still need. Why does a council need a mayor? Why can't a council just be a council? We elect councillors, like a board. You know, board chair usually facilitates. They're not like, they don't necessarily have a higher executive power. You could elect 15 councillors, and they just make decisions based on a majority. And the reason that would be beneficial is because, at least in Toronto, I'm sure it's the same here, the mayoral election becomes the news. And you don't hear a lot about the council races. Does that happen here? Yeah. And that's a shame, because the mayor has one vote and council here has 15. And in Toronto, they have 44. No one knows who they are. We don't hear about them. All we hear about is John Tory and Olivia Chow, even though it's one person. So it's actually a huge distraction from local democracy. And the councillors are the most important people because, again, it's probably worse in Toronto, but like John Tory is not an accessible person anymore. I can't talk to John Tory, and I used to. Like, we used to hang out and go for lunch. And his BlackBerry number doesn't work anymore because he's the mayor of Toronto. My conduit to democracy is my councillor, not the mayor. And we've almost removed the councillor from the political discussions because we focus on the mayor. Anyways, that was a bunch of ideas. This is why I'm writing a book. I'm looking for 100. I mean, those are all ideas in the book. I think the biggest problem is our education system, and that I think we teach apathy in schools instead of teaching people skills of political literacy and critical analysis.
Well, I can tell you, you just gave me a lot to think about, especially the idea of eliminating the mayor was something I never thought of. I've actually been thinking we need a strong mayor, but you've made a very compelling argument for the opposite. So I want to very much thank you for coming down to Hamilton today. I saw you enjoyed the Go ride with your feet up on the seat, which, you know, everybody from Hamilton knows that's what you do midday.
I took my shoes off.
Yeah.
There was no dirt on the seat.
You should move to Hamilton because, you know, then you can enjoy that ride much more often. We'd love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me make a really important point here. The art of isn't to figure out which changes you want or are the most interesting. Because I just give you a whole bunch of really interesting ideas that if I could snap my fingers and change, I would. Don't try and get rid of your mayor. Don't try and change the voting system to 16, because it's not the thing that's winnable right now. The winnable thing right now is working with Fair Vote on the federal reforms to bring in proportional representation, pushing the Liberals a little further, supporting the NDP for their position and the Greens, and most importantly, if any of you are Conservatives, working within the Conservative Party to get them to support PR. It's actually a right-wing idea, in my opinion, to have a proportional voting system that allows the marketplace to be responsive to consumer demand, and that the bottom line of the parties is aligned with the demand and supply of votes. And then when 20% vote for a certain chocolate bar, that company gets the profit for that, right? So there's nothing left-wing about voting reform. It's an absolutely, totally aligned with all the ideas around innovation and creativity benefiting from competition and a fair level playing field that allows startups to have influence on the big boxes, right? So anyways, I think it's a right-wing idea. Bring the Conservatives on board and municipally work on this ranked ballot thing. It's a really rare opportunity. We can do it. I don't know if Toronto will be the first. It might be 1 to 3 Hamilton, and the first meeting is happening tonight over pizza. And it doesn't have to be pizza. We can vote democratically here. We can go out for sushi, like whatever you want, and we will vote, and it will be a ranked ballot. Ice cream. Ice cream? There you go. Well, regardless of dinner, we're going out for ice cream after. Any other questions, or are people feeling tired? Because we could end the formal part of the night and just hang out and chat. How many people, just hands up, let's democratize this right now. I mean, it has been a long time, it's almost 8. Hands up if you want to end the formal part, and those who want to go home can leave without feeling like awkward leaving in the middle of something, and the rest of us can chat, and how many want to keep going? So hands up for option number 1, end the formal part of the night. Hands up. Someone else has to count. That's a lot. Hands up if you want to keep going as a formal event. Oh, that was easy. Great. So I would like to thank everyone. I'm going to pass it to Matthew to wrap up. I will hang out here. Both Matthew and I will both be here for at least the next 7 or 8 hours to talk further. But in terms of the official part of the night, based on this democratic participation, which is what I'm all about, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for coming. Thank you so much, Matt, for inviting me, and I really look forward to working with volunteers in this room to set up 1, 2, 3 Hamilton.
So a couple of things. Wow, you've certainly come in here and you've given us a ton to think about. And as I mentioned earlier in the evening, this has never been for me about pushing my wishes in terms of what I want, where the direction I want to see this go. But it's a very compelling story to decrease the democratic deficit that we have in our process. I ran against 14 other candidates, and I also I can share this with you. Got the tap on the shoulder, from the inside Social Democrats to say maybe you don't want to run in this one. Fortunately for me, I didn't listen, and it'd be a shame for anybody else. Yeah. It'd be a shame to see that happen as it has with some of the people that you mentioned earlier. And on that note, part of the official part, I really want to thank you on behalf, not of the city, because I'll be honest with you, this is not run by the city of Hamilton. In fact, there was very little appetite to have this conversation. And I'll say it, I'll be very frank, which is why I kind of took it upon myself. And if I look around the room, I can see the dozens of community organizers that I know probably going to go on a limb and say 1, 2, 3 Hamilton was probably registered today while this was on. If I know, no, okay. And in that space, I wanted to just leave you with some Hamiltonia. Some wonderful gifts here that we might recognize. This is an official Jelly Brothers print of City Hall. This is a Jelly Brothers print. So the Jelly Brothers are artisan activists, one of which is here this evening, Dan Jelly and his brother Matt. So they do this incredible artwork. And so on behalf of the activist community, we'll say the activists, they also make pillows. So you guys have a good experience. We want to present you with that, and with Franco Fett just passing on and celebrating the diversity that is our city, we also have this other gift here, which is from O's Clothes. It's a Jem Hamilton shirt that we want you to wear proud in Toronto. Right now? Yeah, awesome, sweet. It's blue, yeah. And so I just want to thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I also believe that given Yeah, there it is. I also believe that given the kind of official close of this, it's important and incumbent on me to recognize some of the folks that are here. Dave, you'll be happy to know that the organizing popular movement is alive and well here in Hamilton. We have Mr. Norman Kearney from the People's Platform, who just recently presented on something that's very similar in terms of participatory democracy. So I'd like to recognize Norman Kearney from the People's Platform. I'd like to recognize the incredible work of the Hamilton Civic League. They've been in it for a long haul here. We have Larry Pomerantz and his crew. Larry's up here with the Hamilton Civic League. I'd also like to recognize Hamilton for Transit, Lindsay Goddard, who met you on the way in, took your information on the lists. There is a group of people in this city that are growing around our transit issues. As you know, we're transforming through the recent announcement of LRT, as well as the major shift at Council towards conventional transit, which is very exciting. And so there's going to be some organizing around that as well. I'd like to recognize Wilhelmina McGurman, who from the First Nations community is like an auntie to me and an elder. And early in my candidacy, I had the conversation with Wilhelmina, and she shared her story with me, which was about being visible for the First Nations and for all minority communities, to let them know that it is possible to run in elections. She has run in multiple elections going back probably over the last 10 or 15 years, right? And so I think it's very important to note the work that you've done on this regard, Wilhelmina. I really appreciate all of that. I'd also like to recognize Mr. Fife from the Hamilton District Labour Council, who's here this evening. They play a big role in terms of organizing around social justice issues. Most recently, they're taking on the living wage, which at a municipal level for us in Hamilton is really going to be integral to tackling some of the poverty reduction. Now, on the political side, yeah, please give them a round. On the political side, being a nonpartisan person myself, I would like to recognize those that are politically involved in party organizing here. We have Peter Orman from the Green Party of Canada. We have my very good friend and brother Rahim Aman, who is now a nominated candidate is a candidate for nomination of the Green Party on the Hamilton Mountain. So we have Rahim. I'd also like to acknowledge Jonathan Rosenzan, who is a PC candidate for Hamilton Centre. They are here, and I appreciate your attendance. And so the efforts that we're trying to pull together here in these forums will be having fair vote come. We're very fortunate. In fact, I was on the phone today with Desmond Cole. He has, I think, a great story and a great ability to provide a compelling reason why permanent residents really ought to be valued more in our communities and in our cities and municipalities. You know, to think that somehow it erodes the Canadian citizenship is absurd at the municipal level. These are people who have come over the generations, and as I understand the past, have also had the right in certain other points of our Canadian history to vote. And so I think that conversation is well worth having. I'm hopeful that prior to the 27th, the close of this commenting period, that Desmond will be here. We also have Professor Bird, who is a local political science professor, who will be talking about increasing more women and having gender equality. I'd like to recognize Denise Christopherson, who also hosts what was it called? I apologize. I did attend as a male ally, but simple enough, elect more women. So give it up. And Denise, will that be held again this year? Perfect. And I'm happy to forward that on to the list that we're creating. The list that I am creating will be used. Like you said, there's no passengers on this bus. It will take and it will require you to go home tonight after thoughtful consideration. And if you believe in what was said today, if you believe that there is an alternative to our failing and broken democracy, then I encourage you not to wait until the 26th or 27th. Just go ahead and go home right now. It's posted on my website. You'll be able to find the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and the Honourable Ted McMeekin and make your comments heard. Go on the record, participate in this section of democracy. It is historic. We are in an historic time with an opportunity to do something that has never been done, and from a trajectory standpoint could really change the landscape of our Canadian democracy. So with that, I would certainly like to once again give my warm thanks and gratitude to everybody that is present today. These events don't just happen. I'd like to thank Joey Coleman for recording this and putting it on the public record. I'd like to also announce that Joey will be doing a crowdfunding campaign tomorrow. And I would encourage you to try to beat me tomorrow to donate to his campaign. I'll be doing that first in the morning, and if you can beat me, there'll be a little prize in it for you. And I say that because his efforts don't come for free, and his work is extremely valuable in archiving what happens here in the city. In archiving it, putting it on the public record. I know we've all used it as organizers and activists to refer back to what was actually said in full context. Outside of mainstream media and everything else, what was actually said in full context, you can go to the public record and you'll have a chance tomorrow to donate. So I would highly encourage you to do that. The last person I'd like to thank really is my executive assistant, Simon Granite, who really is integral in all of this. And I would also like to welcome Annette to my team, who is going to be helping me over the course of Pan Am. So I'm hopeful that I could probably name each one of you and thank you all. I know you very well, but I'm hopeful I've covered my political bases. I'd like to thank Mr. Nolan for showing up and Mr. Kevin Werner for showing up from the media, and certainly look forward to this conversation. Do we have a poll right now on the best pizza, local pizza? Do we know where that is? Because it's in the rider. Oh, you're high. That's high class right there. They got tablecloths. Only the best. Well, only the best for you. I suppose we could go crash the Capri. That wouldn't be a problem. So we will convene over here. We'll go down the Capri, and we'll have some of our city's best pizza. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. I hope you didn't get a parking ticket, and if you did, you can send it to Dan Nolan. No, I'm kidding.